My brother announced you're the family failure at Thanksgiving. So I smiled and now I'm his boss after buying out the business he thought he'd inherit. Quick reminder. Don't just watch, be part of the family. Subscribe and say hello from wherever you're watching, right here in the comments. The mashed potatoes were still steaming when my brother Randy decided to destroy me in front of 23 family members. I should have seen it coming. He'd been drinking since noon, that familiar smirk playing at his lips every time Dad mentioned the business. But nothing prepared me for what came next. Let's talk about failures, Randy announced, standing up so fast his chair scraped against Mom's hardwood floors. The conversations died instantly. Aunt Cheryl's fork froze midway to her mouth. Since we're all being so grateful today, I'm grateful I'm not Colleen. 32 years old, back in her apartment after that divorce, working some nobody job at a tech startup nobody's heard of. My stomach dropped. Dad's hand tightened around his whiskey glass. Mom whispered, "Randy, sit down. No, they need to hear this." He was on a roll now, gesturing wildly with his wine glass. While I've been here learning the business, making Dad proud, actually building something, Colleen's been what? Playing with computers? Dad's restaurant empire needs real leadership. Someone who shows up. Someone who isn't the family failure. The silence that followed was suffocating. My cousin Rowena stared at her plate. Uncle Terry coughed. I felt every eye on me, waiting for tears, for rage, for me to run. Instead, something cold and clear settled over me. I smiled. Not a fake smile, a real one. Because Randy had no idea that my nobody startup had just closed a $47 million Series B funding round. He didn't know I'd spent 3 years building relationships with investors who saw potential where my family saw disappointment. And he definitely didn't know that Dad's business partner, Mr. White, had been calling me for months about something Randy would never see coming. Growing up, Randy had always been untouchable. 4 years older, star quarterback, Dad's shadow at Mitchell's Soul Food and Catering every summer while I was too delicate for kitchen work. That's what Dad said when I was 14, eager to learn the business. "Baby girl, this isn't for you. Go read your books." So I did. I read everything. Business journals, tech magazines, case studies of family businesses that failed when they didn't innovate. I watched Dad build Mitchell's from 1 location to 12 across 3 states. Soul Food so good people drove hours for it. But I also watched him refuse to modernize, ignore online ordering, dismiss social media marketing. "That computer nonsense," he'd say, waving his hand. "People want real food, real experience. Not pictures on their phones." Randy agreed with everything Dad said. He had to. His entire identity was wrapped up in being Dad's successor. I remember his 18th birthday when Dad handed him a set of keys to the flagship restaurant. "One day, son, all this will be yours." A Mitchell man running Mitchell's. I wasn't at that party. I was at the library studying for college entrance exams, because my scholarship was the only way I could afford to leave. When I got into Morgan State University for computer science, Dad had shrugged. "If that's what you want, baby. But you always got a place at home." Randy had laughed. "Colleen the tech nerd. Never thought I'd see the day." He'd ruffled my hair like I was a child, not 17. "Good luck with that, sis. Real money's in real businesses." Now, sitting at this Thanksgiving table with his words still echoing, I remembered every dismissal, every assumption, every time they'd made me feel less than. 3 years ago I'd been at my lowest. My marriage to Terrence had imploded spectacularly. Turned out he'd been cheating with his coworker for 8 months. I'd been so focused on building my career at a failing marketing firm that I'd missed the signs. When I finally came home, broken, Randy had been insufferable. "Told you that tech stuff wouldn't work out," he'd said, not even looking up from his phone. We were at Sunday dinner, the weekly torture session. Maybe Dad can find you something in catering management. Answer phones or something. I'd wanted to scream that my marriage failing had nothing to do with my career, that actually I'd been headhunted by 3 startups before I'd even left my old job. But Dad's eyes had held such pity that I'd swallowed my pride and just nodded. That's when I met Lori. She was the sister of one of Dad's suppliers, young, brilliant, with ideas about a food delivery app that would revolutionize how restaurants connected with customers. We'd started talking at a supplier meeting I'd attended with Dad, back when I was still trying to be useful. Your dad's food is legendary, Lori had said, eyes bright with possibility. But his digital presence? Girl, it's non-existent. He's leaving money on the table. We'd exchanged numbers. Within weeks, we were building Dish Connect, a platform that used AI to match users with soul food restaurants based on their specific cravings, dietary needs, and location. Not just delivery. A whole experience. The first year we worked out of my cramped apartment. Lori coded while I handled business development, using every connection I'd ever made. Randy would text me occasionally, "How's the computer thing going? Dad says you're still at it. When you gonna get a real job?" After Randy's Thanksgiving announcement, I'd excused myself to the bathroom. My hands were shaking, but not from hurt, from fury mixed with opportunity. I pulled out my phone and saw 3 missed calls from Lori and a text. "White just called. He's ready. Are you?" Mr. White, Larry White, was Dad's business partner, though most people didn't know it. He'd invested heavily 15 years ago when Dad was expanding, taking a 40% stake. He'd been silent until recently, watching Randy mismanage 2 locations, alienate staff, and rack up health code violations that Dad kept covering up. In the mirror, my reflection stared back. Mom's eyes, Dad's stubborn chin, but something new. Determination that tasted like steel. I texted Lori back, "Yes. Draw up the papers." When I returned to the table, dessert was being served. Randy was holding court, describing his vision for expanding Mitchell's. "We go national," he was saying. "Franchises. Get the Mitchell name everywhere." Dad beamed. He'd been talking about franchising for years but lacked the capital. Randy apparently had a plan involving investors he'd met at his country club. I bit my tongue, knowing those investors would run screaming once they saw Mitchell's actual books, which I'd studied thoroughly during my months of helping Dad organize files. "Colleen, you're awfully quiet," Aunt Cheryl observed, her voice syrupy with false concern. "Cat got your tongue after Randy's little speech?" Everyone watched me again. This time I was ready. "Actually, Aunt Cheryl, I was just thinking about business strategy. Randy, you mentioned franchising. Have you considered the capital requirements? Industry standard is about $2.5 million per location for restaurant franchising. Plus legal fees, brand development, training infrastructure." Randy's smile faltered. "I'm aware of the costs, Colleen. I've been running Dad's business for 3 years. Running 2 locations," I corrected gently, "while Dad runs the other 10. There's a difference." I turned to Dad. "Dad, you've built something incredible. Truly. But have you thought about digital integration? Mitchell's doesn't even have online ordering. Do you know you're losing approximately 40% of potential revenue to competitors who do?" Dad frowned. "We do just fine without all that." "You do. For now." I pulled out my phone, pulling up data I'd compiled months ago. "But your customer base is aging. The average age of a Mitchell's customer is 52. Younger demographics, 25 to 45. They're eating at Mama Jean's Kitchen and Savory South because those places have apps, loyalty programs, seamless delivery integration." The table had gone quiet again, but this time with interest instead of pity. Uncle Terry leaned forward. "That true, Ray? Your customer's that old?" Dad looked uncomfortable. Randy jumped in. Colleen doesn't know what she's talking about. She's never worked a day in the restaurant business. She's a tech person who just secured $47 million in Series B funding for a food tech startup. I interrupted. The words dropped like bombs. Our platform DishConnect launches in 3 weeks. We already have 87 soul food restaurants signed up across the South. We're projecting $15 million in first-year revenue. Mom's fork clattered to her plate. Rowena gasped. Dad stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Randy recovered first, laughing. $47 million? Colleen, come on. Don't lie to make yourself feel better about. I held up my phone, showing him the press release from TechCrunch. The headline read, DishConnect raises $47 million to revolutionize soul food industry. The rest of Thanksgiving passed in a blur of congratulations and Randy's barely contained rage. He cornered me in the kitchen as I was helping Mom with dishes. This doesn't change anything, he hissed. Dad's business is still mine. Some tech money doesn't make you qualified to run a real restaurant. You're right, I said calmly, scrubbing a pot. It doesn't. But my business degree does. My 3 years analyzing every successful restaurant chain in America does. My relationships with the investors you'll need for that franchise dream does. His face reddened. You're nothing. A divorced failure who got lucky with some app. Randy, Mom's voice cut through his venom. She stood in the doorway, disappointment etched across her features. Apologize to your sister. Now. For what? Telling the truth? She abandoned this family, abandoned Dad's legacy. She built her own legacy, Mom said quietly, while you've been drinking Dad's whiskey and running his restaurants into the ground. Yes, I've seen the reports. The health violations at the downtown location. The staff complaints about your behavior. Your father shields you, but I know. Randy's mouth opened and closed. Finally, he stormed out and I heard his car peel out of the driveway moments later. Mom touched my shoulder. That app of yours. Can it really help restaurants? Yes, Mama. It can. I dried my hands. It helps them reach new customers, manage orders, analyze trends. I built it thinking about Dad's business actually. About all the restaurants like his that deserve to survive. That night Larry White called. Your brother just left my office, he said without preamble. Drunk, angry, demanding I increase his distribution orders. Said something about proving himself. I'm done. I want out, but I want Mitchell's to survive. Are you ready to have that conversation? I met Larry White at his office the Monday after Thanksgiving. At 63, he still had the sharp eyes of a businessman who'd built 3 successful restaurant supply companies. His office overlooked downtown, walls covered with photos of restaurants he'd helped build, including Mitchell's original location. Your father and I go back 30 years, he began, pouring tea. I invested in Mitchell's because Ray had vision and heart. But he's stubborn and your brother. He trailed off diplomatically. Is running it into the ground, I finished. I've seen the numbers, Mr. White. The 2 locations Randy manages directly are bleeding money. High turnover, inconsistent quality, customer complaints up 40% in 2 years. White nodded slowly. Your father won't see it. He sees his son, his legacy. But I see the financials. Last quarter we barely broke even. The industry's changing, Colleen. Restaurants that don't adapt die. I don't want Mitchell's to die, but I can't keep throwing money at Randy's mismanagement. What are you proposing? He slid a folder across his desk. I'm 73% certain your father will need a capital injection within 6 months. Randy's franchise plan will fail. I've seen his projections, they're fantasy. When that happens, when your father's back is against the wall, I want to sell my 40% stake. To you. My heart hammered. Mr. White, that's worth about 12 million, yes. But I'll sell it to you for 8 with a payment plan. You bring Dishconnect's technology, your business acumen, and you save Mitchell's. In return, you become the largest shareholder. 51% when combined with the 11% your mother secretly holds that your father doesn't know she can vote independently. I stared at him. Mama has voting shares? White smiled. She's smarter than anyone gives her credit for. He and I have been talking, Colleen. We're both tired of watching something beautiful die because of pride and outdated thinking. Over the next 3 weeks, I worked like I'd never worked before. Dishconnect launched successfully. Within 5 days, we had 200 restaurants on the platform and 15,000 users. The press called it the Black-owned tech success story of the year. My phone wouldn't stop ringing with interview requests, investor interest, expansion opportunities. But my focus was Mitchell's. I hired a private investigator, professional, discreet, to document the health code violations Randy kept covering up. I interviewed former employees who'd quit rather than work under him. I compiled data showing exactly how much money Mitchell's was losing to competitors with better digital presence. Lori thought I was crazy. Girl, you just became a multimillionaire. Why are you obsessing over your father's restaurant? Because it's my legacy too, I told her. We were in Dishconnect's new office, glass walls overlooking the city. Randy thinks he's entitled to it because he's male, because he showed up. But I love that business just as much. I just want to run it right. And because you want to see his face when you take it, Lori added knowingly. I couldn't deny it. There was satisfaction in the revenge, yes. But more than that, I wanted to prove I wasn't the family failure. I wanted to save something my father had built, something that mattered to our community. The day before Christmas, Dad called. Baby girl, I need your help. His voice was strained. Can you come by the house? Don't tell Randy. I found him in his study, financial reports spread across his desk. He looked older, somehow tired. I don't know what to do, Colleen. The downtown location. We failed another health inspection. If we don't fix it, we lose the license. That's $300,000 in renovations we don't have. Where's Randy? In Aruba. Christmas vacation with his girlfriend. Said he needed a break from the stress. I sat across from my father and chose my words carefully. Dad, I want to help you, but we need to have an honest conversation about Randy. Don't start. Dad. My voice was firm. I love him. He's my brother. But he's destroying what you've built. Not on purpose, maybe. But through neglect, through arrogance, through refusing to adapt. I showed him everything. The employee testimonials. The documented health violations at both locations Randy managed directly. The comparative data showing how his locations underperformed the others. The financial projections showing Mitchell's would be insolvent within 8 months at the current trajectory. Dad's face crumbled. He's my son. I wanted to give him something, a legacy. He needs to earn it, Dad. Just like you did. You started with one food truck and built an empire. You didn't inherit it. You created it through hard work and innovation. Randy thinks the name Mitchell entitles him to success without the work. What do I do? Dad's voice broke. He's going to hate me. Maybe, I said gently. But what do you love more? Randy's approval or the business you spent 30 years building? Because right now you can't have both. I laid out my proposal. Dishconnect would integrate with Mitchell's. Free platform access, custom features, priority support. I'd help modernize the operations, implement proper management systems, train staff. In return, I wanted operational control of the 2 failing locations to turn them around. And if I can save them, I concluded, we talk about my role in the company's future. A real role, not answering phones. Dad was quiet for a long time. Finally, what about Randy? He can stay. But as a manager, not the heir apparent. He learns the business properly from the ground up like everyone else. If he proves himself, he earns more responsibility. Merit, not birthright. Randy returned from Aruba tanned and oblivious. He didn't know that during his vacation I'd been at the downtown location 16 hours a day, working with the staff to fix every violation, implementing new systems, training on food safety protocols. The employees, so used to Randy's contempt, responded to basic respect like flowers to rain. "You're Miss Mitchell?" Shauna, a line cook who'd been there 8 years, had asked on day one. "Ray's daughter." "Yes. And I'm here to help. Tell me everything that's broken." By the time Randy walked into the downtown location on January 3rd, we'd passed the follow-up health inspection with a score of 96. The kitchen gleamed. Staff morale was palpable. And I was in the office reviewing inventory systems with the manager. "What the hell are you doing here?" Randy's voice boomed across the restaurant. I looked up calmly from the computer. "Working. You might want to try it sometime." His face went purple. "This is my location. You have no right." "Actually," Dad's voice came from the doorway, "I asked her to help while you were gone. The health department was going to shut us down, Randy. Your sister fixed it in 2 weeks." Randy turned on Dad. "You brought her in behind my back? Your failure daughter who doesn't know anything about restaurants." "Watch your mouth." Dad's voice was steel. "Colleen's not a failure. She's what I should have been. Innovative, educated, willing to evolve. And yes, I brought her in. Because the alternative was losing this location permanently." "This is bullshit." Randy grabbed papers off the desk, scattering them. "I've given you everything." "You've given me headaches and losses," Dad interrupted. "We're implementing new management structure. Colleen's going to oversee operations at this location and the Plaza Street location. You'll report to her." The silence was atomic. Randy stared at Dad, then at me, realization dawning. "No, absolutely not. I'm your son. And she's my daughter who just saved us from a lawsuit and closure." That night, Larry White made his move. He called Dad and requested a meeting. Him, Dad, Mom, me, and Randy. We gathered in White's conference room, tension thick enough to cut. "Ray, we've been partners a long time," White began. "But I'm 73. I want to retire, spend time with my grandchildren. I'm selling my 40% stake in Mitchell's." Dad went pale. "Larry, we can work something out." "I already have. I'm selling to Colleen." Randy exploded. "What? You can't. That's... Dad, tell him he can't do this." "It's his stake to sell," Dad said quietly. "But Colleen, baby, that's millions. You can't afford." "I can." I opened my briefcase, removing contracts. Disconnect's success has provided substantial capital. Mr. White and I have structured a deal that works for both of us. With his 40% and Mama's 11% that she's agreed to vote with me, I'll hold 51% of Mitchell's. Mom's small smile confirmed what White had told me. Dad looked at her, betrayed. "Denise, I invested my inheritance money when you started this business, Ray," Mom said firmly. "My father's money. You always called it your business, but legally I'm a shareholder. And I'm voting with our daughter because she's going to save what you built." Randy looked like he'd been punched. You're cutting me out. Your son. For her." "Nobody's cutting you out," I said. "You can stay, Randy. But as an employee, not an owner. You'll earn your place like everyone else." "Go to hell," he spat. "All of you." He stormed out, and this time Dad didn't call him back. The contracts were signed that night. By morning, I owned controlling interest in Mitchell's Soul Food and Catering. At 32, I was now my brother's boss. The first 3 months were brutal. Randy tried everything. Spreading rumors to suppliers, poisoning relationships with longtime customers, even attempting to poach staff. But the numbers didn't lie. Under my management, the 2 struggling locations became profitable within 6 weeks. Customer satisfaction scores jumped 38%. Employee retention hit a 3-year high. I implemented everything I'd learned building DishConnect. Online ordering with a custom app. Loyalty programs. Social media presence managed by a team who understood our audience. We started catering corporate events, something Dad had always avoided. I hired a PR firm run by a Black woman who understood soul food wasn't just food. It was culture, history, love made edible. Revenue increased 42% in the first quarter. Dad started coming to me for advice. "You know things I don't," he admitted one day. We were in the flagship kitchen watching dinner service. Technology, marketing, how young people think. "I was wrong to dismiss you. You wanted to protect me," I said. "I understand that now. But protection became limitation. You didn't let me try." And Randy, I haven't heard from him in 2 months. It hurt less than I'd expected. He's working for Mama Jean's Kitchen, I heard. Ironically, using our platform for their delivery service. Dad chuckled sadly. "He'll come around. He's stubborn like his father. Maybe not. But I couldn't wait for his approval anymore. I had a business to run, employees depending on me, a legacy to build, not inherit. The day we signed the contract to franchise Mitchell's, my deal, my investors, done right this time, I thought about last Thanksgiving. About Randy calling me the family failure. About the shame that had burned through me, the desire to disappear. Now I stood in a conference room with investors, lawyers, and Dad, signing agreements that would take Mitchell's national. The right way. Sustainable. Modern. Honoring the past while building the future. This Thanksgiving I hosted. Randy wasn't invited, his choice, not mine. He'd sent a bitter text. "Hope you're happy destroying our family." I'd replied simply, "I saved our family business. That's more than you did." 25 people filled my new house. Mom, Dad, aunts, uncles, cousins, and my DishConnect team, because they were family too now. Lori raised a glass for a toast. "To Colleen," she announced. "Who proved that failure is just a word bitter people use when they're afraid of your success." Everyone cheered. Dad stood next, his eyes suspiciously wet. "To my daughter, who I underestimated. Who built an empire while I thought she was broken. Who saved my business and taught this old man that change isn't death, it's survival." After dinner, I found Mom on the balcony. "You knew," I said. "That day he called me a failure. You knew I'd take over." She smiled. "I hoped. I saw your fire, baby. Randy mistakes cruelty for strength. But you turned pain into power. That's real strength." My phone buzzed. An email from Forbes, 30 under 40. Colleen Mitchell, tech entrepreneur revolutionizing soul food industry. The article detailed DishConnect's success and my surprising takeover of Mitchell's. It called me a visionary bridging tradition and innovation. I thought about success, about revenge, about proving everyone wrong. The truth was more complicated. I didn't take over Mitchell's to hurt Randy. I did it to save something beautiful. The revenge was just a bonus. But God, it was a sweet bonus. Inside, laughter erupted. Uncle Terry telling stories, Rowena showing everyone her new baby, Dad teaching Lori's nephew how to make his signature mac and cheese. This was legacy. Not ownership, not control, not proving you're better than your siblings. Legacy was building something that mattered, that lasted, that helped people. It was creating opportunities, not hoarding them. It was understanding that family business meant something different than family dynasty. Randy texted as I watched my family celebrate. "I'm sorry. Not for what I said. for not seeing you." I didn't respond immediately. Maybe one day we'd rebuild our relationship. Maybe not. But I'd learned something crucial. I didn't need his approval, his acceptance, or his acknowledgement. I had something better. I had myself. The woman who'd stood up from that Thanksgiving table and smiled. Who'd turned family failure into family savior. Who'd proven that sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's success. And mine was just beginning.